So welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Very excited to have a good buddy of mine, Daniel, the mega investor Tremelo. He is going to be going over strategies, wholesale strategies, and we're going to talk about strategies to find your next fix and flip project. So I'm going to jump right into it here. All right, so we have a so make sure you guys stay tuned for all the way until the end, because we're gonna have some great info on how to get started, and then Daniel has some really good training classes that you can sign up for. So
Yes.
and we also have Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And I'm your host, Brandon Warnke. I am the account manager for TaliMar Financial. I'm a hard money lender and also like to connect people. I'm a big connector. I'm out there trying to connect investors to wholesalers, and then we connect the investor to the money. So that's my main goal is develop the right action plan for each borrower. I've been involved in the private lending space since 2017. So it's been an interesting journey. Today is my first webinar, and I'm very honored to have Daniel as my guest. So I'm going to try to be as awkward as possible on this thing. A quick fun fact about me. I'm also a BJJ black belt. It stands for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And a while ago, I summited Mount Rainier over in Washington. So I will have next, we got Daniel, mega investor Tremelo. Dan.
Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Daniel. Pleasure to meet anyone on here. But yeah, my background's here, guys. So I certainly a lot of experience in the space. Previously was in wealth management. So I was doing a lot of dealing with retail, honestly, savers. So dealing with people helping them plan retirement plans. I was in the space of like dealing with helping calculate public pensions for a long time. So dealt with police, fire, teachers, all types, Social Security, sold, would set up people with estate plans and do just kind of retail financial services. And I got into the fix and flip, wholesale, rental, I guess, single family investment space not that long ago. So I moved to San Diego 4 years ago, 4.5, take over a hedge fund that was basically hemorrhaging cash, that was trying to flip too many at a time, frankly. And that was kind of what it was. And then quickly realized that's a very difficult model to scale as you're trying to remodel all these different houses, as opposed to what I kind of do now, which is wholesale, work with guys like Brandon, getting them private money loans, and then I'll fix and flip certainly on occasion, but it's never been like something I wanted to do at scale. But incredible way to make money. I have earned more income and wealth in the fix and flip business than any other business I've ever been in, almost times 10. So there's just so much money to make in this space. Like, so being a part of SDCIA, partnering guys like Brandon, you are on the fast track to wealth and success if you implement what we're talking about today. My whole thing is find the highest and best use for a property. That's really important. So kind of went from let's fix and flip some deals, let's wholesale some deals, to let's pick up rentals, let's figure out the zoning, let's really, really dial in and see how to monetize these transactions with their highest and best use. And that's what we've been able to do. So super fortunate be able to do this in San Diego with some of my best friends. Any questions you guys have, I'm always around via doing these webinars and trainings as Brandon spoke about. But yeah, enough about me. Let's kind of jump in.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Thanks for going over that. There's a huge play right now, especially with the zoning in San Diego. So
yeah,
with the Complete Communities Act and the TPA. So I mean, there's a lot of potential value of these properties. Quick, before we go to the next slide, fun fact, hit me.
Fun fact, I was previous professional athlete. I won a gold medal in 2011. I was a football player though. So, but
40 time? What's your 40 time?
I ran what do I tell people? What did I actually run? I legitimately ran in a 4.5
Nice.
and I'm not a big but yeah, and I was in the NFL combine and stuff like that. So was a punt returner and safety.
Awesome.
I still act like an athlete, but I certainly can't do that what I could do anymore.
I'm trying to recruit Dan to come train jujitsu. So
Dude,
one of these days.
but dude, I'm interested and terrified at the same time. Yeah.
We'll go easy. We'll go slow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Slow roll is what they call it.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we're about to flow right now. What we're going to be going over today is what a wholesale deal is. We're going to talk about avenues to find opportunities, and then how to value a deal and an opportunity once it's sourced. And then, of course, we are going to decode what financing looks like. So there we go. All right, what's a wholesale deal? Dan, I'll let you kind of jump in here since you're the local expert.
Sure. And guys, there's really only two ways properties are wholesaled. And I think wholesale gets thrown around a lot. It confuses me sometimes of what people are saying when they say wholesale. I guess my version of wholesale is two different avenues of getting a property. So there's a lot of people look in the MLS for properties, multiple listing service, and you're going to find most distressed or fixing houses, and Brandon will tell you this because I'm sure he sees them, are drastically overpriced. So, and we'll go over the math, some of that today. So typically a real estate agent is going to list a house by they're not going to list it for a flip. They're going to see it as, let's say what we call, you're going to learn this term today, after renovation value, or ARV. Let's say the ARV is like 700,000. What most agents and brokers will do is, let's say they assume it needs 100,000 to work, they'll list that house at 600,000. So as a fix and flipper, there's absolutely no way you can make money buying and selling that house, because your job's to buy it, fix and flip it, and sell it. As an end user, you better have some skill sets to remodel the property if you're going to come in at it at 600,000. The wholesale business is what I consider kind of the underbelly of the MLS. We're kind of like the basement, where nobody really sees. You're not going to find our properties on Zillow. You're going to find them via email. You're going to find them via Brandon if he's got wind of a deal coming down the pipe. You're going to find them via someone like myself who has a wholesale business where you can subscribe to our properties. We get you under contract of a non-disclosure agreement, and we just start sending you opportunities that are valued correctly where you can actually buy them and sell for profit. So a wholesale business is really two different ways. As our business or any wholesaler, they'll have a contract directly with the seller for purchase, and then they're going to assign the rights to that contract to you as a buyer for a fee. So it's called consideration. So that's the assignment business. You assign the rights to the contract. Most of the time, we assign 100% of the rights to the contract in the timeline of close. So let's say, and this is why hard money is so effective in this space. Wells Fargo's not going to close, or Chase isn't going to close. TaliMar coming in close in 7 to 10 days, and that looks and feels just like cash to the seller and the wholesaler. So that's the high level wholesale deal, an assignment of rights to the contract for purchase. So that same, let's say 700,000 ARV, a wholesaler might send you that around 475,000, and that's a lot better for profitability versus on the MLS. You can find stuff on the MLS, but just incredibly hard to get pricing down.
Right. And then, say you've got a property under contract. What's the average? Like, how long do you have as a wholesaler generally to sign that?
So typically the wholesale,
the
within 3 days of getting contract is typically when we will find a buyer. There are times where we already have a buyer in place and we'll send it to you. Let's say one of you guys on this really wants the deal. We'll send you a copy of within an hour of signing the contract.
Pretty fast.
So I've certainly done these within the hour of signing or 6 to 7 days later, but usually it's about 3 days. We're doing a deal right now up north. That's about 5 days. I did one maybe a week ago. That was 2 days. And then I've literally gotten a contract, called up someone like Brandon, said, you got a buyer for this, and did it within 30 minutes to an hour. We've done that too. So, when pricing is right, people move on the deal.
Yeah.
So you got to move quick on these properties when you do get them.
Right.
Another way is a contract to purchase. So there's a term called RPA, residential purchase agreement. You guys probably heard it or are starting to hear it. But same difference. But there's no assignment for consideration. I call this taking a gain on sale, where I'm going to buy this property, I'll flip it to you same day. So I'll actually own the house. All right, sophisticated wholesaler, can do this. Most you're going to see are assignments. But in general, like dealing with our company in general, you're going to deal with either assignment or a purchase, and that's when the property's bought and sold, and then you'll have a concurrent RPA. So we're going to buy it. We're going to buy the house. We're going to get the property under contract. We're going to close on the house and probably flip it to you within the same day. The timeline to close is still about 10 to 14 days. So for example, let's say we got a contract day 1, we had a 14-day escrow. You guys come in on day 2. Brandon can make sure you guys are good to go by the day we buy it and flip it to you same day.
Yeah. And we've closed deals in 3 business days or less. I mean, but the borrower has to be on it. So typically we like 5 to 7 business days. That's the sweet spot. You can do it faster, but if you can follow our process, we can get it done. But
any questions on any of this so far, please plug it in the chat.
yeah, please.
If not, that's okay.
We'll have a section for Q&A later as well.
Yeah.
All right. So next up is so how do you as a wholesaler get out there? How are you finding these opportunities?
So so this is probably the biggest question I get from everyone is how do you
I know you can't share all your secrets, but maybe just
I don't mind sharing, by the way, like totally clear with you guys. Like I will tell you, because there's nothing that is a secret in this space. There's no magic formula to finding the deal. It really comes down, you got to know what you're looking for. And that's probably like the biggest thing. Is knowing what an actual deal looks like. And then you can backtrack the personality types that may have these opportunities for you. So I probably over 100 times, I feel like went on a whiteboard and just drew up who could come across a fixer property, where would they come from, who would own it, how would they want to sell it, why, and then I backtracked into, now these people on here, or these sources I have, really the top few are centers of influence, right? And a wholesaler already is in the space. They're set up like myself. We get inbound leads of right around 20 a day that we look at, and we effectively put under contract to sell, I'm going to say about 10 a month. So the numbers are the numbers. You have to run big numbers in the space. So we've done a lot of prospecting, marketing, calling, text, different ways and avenues. So wholesaler is going to have a lot of great resources, at least an experienced one. Real estate agents are also really great, because in their normal business, they're going to come across property that needs a lot of work. It's an everyday thing for them. They're in real estate and they are full time. If I haven't put in anything I put in here, by the way, I found deals on here. So these are all actual sources. So CPAs for sure, if they're dealing with, they're in a financial business and people call them with financial issues, or in a CPA, I've definitely gotten wind of a deal where they're kind of arm's length and said, you can call this person, and reached out and gotten that property. So I used to be a financial advisor, so I know that's the way to get them, because I used to get people coming in the office all the time. When you're in financial services, they think that you do everything financially, even though you really don't. So you get a lot of questions about loan modifications, or if someone's in foreclosure. I was an advisor, I got those questions. But I was around real estate people because I networked with them for clients. So I was able to get business, and it kind of led me to the space. Obviously attorneys are really good. Estate planners, they set up trusts and wills for families, right? They deal with if there's a death, they deal with the trustees and the, in those regards too. So they're going to be communicative in helping, maybe referring you over. Real estate attorneys are great. They're also very difficult because everyone wants to talk to them. But I've gotten business from real estate attorneys where, a couple of times, probate, obviously, death without a trust or will, and those people exist and they deal with probate cases all the time. Everyone wants to talk to them. They're very, very tight knit of who they're going to send business to. Typically it's an agent. But you can connect and get some probate business. I've gotten business from solar sales. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, no, interesting. Probate. I'm very interested on the solar sales, but I want to hear that story. Like, that's the last one I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, they're solar guys they door knock.
Oh, true.
So that's all they do is run around and door knock. And whether or not the property is completely crappy or not, they're knocking on the door to sell solar. So the relationship I'd set up with these guys and say, hey, look, if you come across a distressed property that needs a lot of work and it's the owner that you're knocking on the door to, send them, like, refer their, get their information, send it over. We'll call them and see if they're open to a cash offer on the property. And we've gotten a deal that way.
Wow.
So in general, they're mobile prospectors anyway. Okay, any of these people that legally can, we'll send them a referral fee. So I'll say, hey, if you find this, I'll give you $5,000. And home inspectors, I've gotten business from home inspectors, probably a handful of times. I'd say probably 3 or 5 deals. And home inspectors is like, if you ever inspect a house that is like a waste for you to inspect because it's so messed up, like, call me. So I've had a couple home inspectors send business. What
about TV commercials? You ever thought about that? Because a lot of these people that are trying to get rid of these or get out of these houses, I mean, they're in that kind of upper age,
they'll watch TV for sure.
And they still watch local news,
Mhm.
local, Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy. So, I mean, I see those commercials. I wonder, have you ever thought about doing commercials?
Yeah.
TV?
So where I've been we're going to start outbound marketing to bring in. So TV, radio, and YouTube are on that list.
Yeah.
Local. And so we're playing with the ad spend. Like, in general, I will tell you this, is my ad spend has gotten up to, at one point, about 70,000 a month in marketing cost. So you can spend a lot of money to generate leads.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you better have a return on it. I have not played with the other stuff because I had a lot of success in what I was doing or have been doing. And so it's really been when we want to start that, like pay-per-click, SEO, too.
Better have your team ready to go. Once you turn that faucet on, you're going to be full steam ahead, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, sending mailers. And so it's like the personality profiles of these people are really important. So pre-foreclosures are a really big one. That's the NOD list, right? So you can contact a title company and say, I want a list of anyone who's in default. These people have now a motivating timeline. So these are ways people get properties, but you got to understand the personality type of who you're finding these from. There's a couple different avenues. You need 2 things be happening at any given time for a deal to happen, period. You need a motivated seller who wants to sell. You need or a motivating timeline. So I can't even count how many deals where I've dealt with someone in foreclosure that has a trustee sale date, meaning a foreclosure date, within a week. And they put their head in the sand. They're like, I'm ready to sell. And 90% of the time, the property has not been touched. If they're not paying the mortgage, they're also not paying whatever their maintenance, property taxes, insurances. They haven't cut the grass and all, whatever. They are fixers. So those fit in a lot of buckets. Another way to think about it is death of a joint tenant, or pulling affidavit of death through a county recorder, where someone passed away and they have an address attached and it's contacting the family around it saying, were they looking to sell the house? Most of the time they are. What I find in most like inherited properties, the family typically wants to unload them if they need a lot of work. If they're in pretty decent shape, most of the families keep them because, or they go list it retail. But a lot of these, they just want to, they don't want to list on the MLS. They just want to sell it off market to an investor and just move on.
Yeah, because then you have to deal with people coming in, picking, sellers,
Yeah.
seller demands,
They just want to move
agent
on.
fees, all that good stuff.
Exactly.
Another thing I heard not too long ago, title companies, you can start looking up people that have like 2 or more people that are on title. That might be a good avenue as well. Because if you have like 3 people, somebody's going to need to eventually get their money back.
Yeah.
They
They're
didn't
not
have
wrong.
money to
That
buy it in
happens.
the first place, so they had to bring in capital partners.
Yeah. There you go.
And
I mean,
I'm not a wholesaler, but if I was on Saturdays or Sundays, I'd be going to garage sales, just talking to every
yeah,
home.
I've gotten,
Estate
it's
sales,
funny you say that. I've gotten a deal
like that.
before like that.
So,
And then just like, honestly, everyone should know that you're looking for deals. So
yeah,
like
just
friends and
what's
family,
your circle of influence. Yeah.
I've gotten business from people that friends and family are like, hey, my mom's looking to sell, my family was looking to sell. Transaction coordinators have sent me business. People that are just like in the space, that are just, now when you go Redfin, you can find those, they are listed, but you can find properties. Zillow, you can find pre-foreclosures. They actually have, if you click in notice of default, you can find those things. There's different websites you can go to kind of track these down. Like Property Radar has always been a big one. That was, I think it used to be called Foreclosure Finder. You can find like notice of default data. PropStream is now becoming pretty popular because you can stack the information, meaning you can stack the data. Terms like non-owner occupied, which is a rental owner. So all times I look at rental owners that have owned the property for more than 20 years and I'll target that.
So bottom line,
Yeah.
there are endless avenues, multiple
Yeah.
streets to get a deal. So you just got to have your ears to the ground to start looking.
Yeah, that's it.
Straight up. All right. Time's flying by, so we're gonna move on to
Yeah, let's do it.
the next one. So you got something on in the crosshairs on the radar now.
Yeah, so I'll tell you how we do our math. Does everyone have does everyone have a calculator handy or anything like that, like their phone?
I'm sure they do. Everybody
You always ask a question in there or anything like that, but I always like to be interactive with this stuff. So the terminology you really need to know as far as valuing, and look, I want to be very, very, very clear. If you don't have a fix and flip pro forma, do not flip the house. And so if you need help with something like that, Brandon and I can help you. It's going to give you the estimate of your profit once you factor in all of your costs and expenses. Okay, so you could probably Google them. I certainly have them, so you need a fix and flip pro forma to understand how you're going to make money flipping the property. But in general, and you can ask questions after, we can discuss how to get that to you guys, things like that. I have courses I've set up, but we'll talk about, but you need to know the term ARV. Okay, so ARV is after renovation value. So Brandon, you call Brandon and say, I have this deal I want you to flip. And Brandon's gonna be like, we're gonna factor in ARV. You're like, what the hell is ARV? He's gonna say, all right, we gotta figure this out. Just chat, we're trying to see if chat's working.
yeah, keep going.
So basic math is this. So my basic template is I'll take ARV. Let's everyone take out your calculator, put in 900,000. Say my initial template is I'll take 85% of that number, depending on the density in the area. Now, if you're in when I say density, I'm talking good school district, nice tract houses, ideally 3-2s, under 2,000 square feet, like good areas. If you get into suburban areas, like more expensive areas, pricing changes, but we're going to use the basic template. Then I'll take times 0.85, 85% of ARV. So now I have 15% of that's going to be my profit margin effectively. Okay, so depending on how you bake in your pro forma and how you work it, I want to make sure that I'm going to be profitable on this deal. Then I'm going to subtract our renovation numbers. So the next avenue, you better understand your reno, and you get your contractor there and say, how much is this in fix and flip going to cost? Let's assume it needs $100,000 for fun. Okay, so subtract 100,000. I now have 665. Now what I'll do is I'll subtract a buffer or a holding cost or a wholesale fee. I'll say, okay, I want to drop this by 30. Let's call it 25,000 for buffer. Man, I don't know. My contractor said there might be roof stuff. You're only going to know someone's information. There may be some plumbing stuff. I found out disclosures. I found out there's a death on the property that was X. Maybe that affects someone on the back end that doesn't like that and have to hold the property a little bit longer. So it can factor in holding costs, it can factor in any extra buffer. Usually what I'll do is I'll take the construction estimate of 100,000 and I'll always add 10% to that number anyway, just in case I need my 10%. And then I just want there might be extra closing costs. There might be credits on the back end I give to the buyer. Maybe didn't like the roof, whatever it is, you know. Maybe I didn't factor in the fact that it's a corner lot in a kind of a busy area and there's a problem in my ARV pricing. So now let's subtract that number. It's called 25,000. Puts me at my purchase price of 640,000. So that's my contract price I want for a $900,000 house that needs 100 grand in a good area. So a lot of times people hear buy 70% of ARV or buy 72% of ARV or 75% of ARV. Look, I don't know the exact math, but I do know if you work forward looking back, going backwards, that you'll probably end up around there, but you can't just go, my rule of thumb is 70%. Your rule of thumb has to be your percentage of ARV. I do a training on this, guys. I've done one in SDCIA, I think it was February, of how to value a cash deal and the nuances and really the detailed analysis I run on this. I'm going to be doing another one. I'm doing a webinar next week. I'll jump into that, but I have a cash deal webinar I do and seminar that's really detailed on how to value.
You got one coming up on the 3rd, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's next week. Is that next week? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll jump into that one. It'll be valuing a fix and flip similar, but like more and more detail. And I'll jump into the analysis, but teaching how to comp, how to analyze. And I'll jump into that. Anyway, so what's that 640? You call Brandon and say, I got a deal at 640, needs 100. He's like, bro, killer deal. Let's go. Done. He's not even going to really ask many questions. He's going to desktop it and know that's valued right.
Yep.
You know,
yep. Super easy.
Yep.
So I know you just talked about kind of how you get to that valuation. Can you just expand a little more on like kind of the rules here?
Yeah. So
when you're looking at your ARVs, kind of a lot of people will go like, we like to see 3 to 6 months is ideal, just because a year ago, we were in the thick of things and it was just
market.
ARVs were just outrageous. But yeah, we like to go like, I say,
so this is my high level
area, like 12 months. Maybe
these are my high level rules. And I'm honestly, next week, I'll go through like a lot more detailed of what these mean in general. Because there's I actually use Redfin to comp. I do not use MLS. I'm not licensed. So I don't use anything but Redfin. Silly enough. I do not price per square foot. I don't even know what that means. I honestly couldn't tell you. I was never trained that way, so I just don't understand it.
We do a lot of price per square foot over here. We use Redfin as well, but we go a lot off of price per square foot. It's not 100% weighted, but our internal evaluation is heavily weighted on price per square foot, and then we adjust from there.
Yeah. So everyone, look, I don't, but that doesn't mean we might end up around the exact same math.
Yeah.
So anyway, when I look at comps, I ideally 90 days back. The hardest thing at the last, and Brandon would tell you this, I'm sure, and Brock, the last year, it's been hard to find comps because there's not a lot of data, prior to that, it was pretty dang easy. There's stuff pending and sold. There's definitely more activity the last probably 3 months. We all agree, like seeing more stuff we can comp against, but like it was rough for a minute. There's still pockets that just not a lot of sold stuff. But ideally I go 90 days back on solds. I will go 6 months. I've actually gone 2 years back on some comps if I can't find them. And if they're super niche. And what's
Yeah.
happening, and then I've just fast forwarded and done some kind of back the napkin math of if there's nothing sold out there, but the velocity in the market is high, blah, blah, blah. And, interest rates at that time versus now and pricing. And I'll take like a percentage of the current math. And that's when I look at the 2-year stuff, just so I can get somewhere on price.
Mhm.
Pending comps are really helpful. So I'll teach you how to find pending comps, but we call the listing agents on those comps. We have
Yes.
conversations with them and ask them where they're
Actually,
at.
just did this last weekend.
Nice.
Called 3 listing agents, and we're all like 50,000 above asking.
So that's
Crazy. The market
killer
is
information.
it's heating up.
So here's what's also you're going to find is you'll find great deals that way because no one knows the pricing yet,
Yeah.
but you do, so we definitely, that's killer. If they'll give the information, which hopefully they do,
They do. I mean, they're 3 out of 3
nice.
so far, 100%.
Good. So look at active comps. We'll look at days on market of active comps. We'll look if they're just active for a week or 30 days, or 90 days or something like a subject property. So if someone asks, Corey, we'll definitely answer that. Okay. Oh, you're an appraiser. Okay, cool.
Yeah, Corey's an appraiser, so
Nice. So he knows his stuff.
he definitely knows his stuff.
Helpful. Yeah, we'll do that too.
We'll get him on a next
It's
webinar.
funny.
Teach
I
everybody how
should
to do ARV.
need to learn from God. I avoid competing neighborhoods because they scare me. It's weird. Like it's hard. I don't know how far to go over, but Corey, you should probably help us and do a training on that.
Yeah.
I just avoid them. Like because I'll look at well, it depends how far. I don't like going like too far over, like more than a couple miles. And that's when I'm like, I'm going to go further back and then just kind of run some math.
Yeah. I love the draw feature in Redfin.
Yeah, it's helpful.
Draw your neighborhood.
Yep.
So you only value against other fix and flips.
Yeah, ideally. So ideally, I look at what's flipped in the area, and that's my ARV.
Yeah.
So that's what I look at. If I can't, and so it's a little different. Like appraiser looks at is sold comps because they're running, they're appraising the current property. I look at sold fix and flips, not sold retail. I'm typically finding on our stuff on the fix and flip, like fuller remodel versus like retail, like family lived in type property that they did some upgrades. Probably seeing like in some areas, like an 8 to 10% difference in price, sometimes 5, where it's just like full remodel is going to go for 5 to 8% more than the non-remodeled house. So then my ARV will go up, versus just looking at the retail stuff.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, when the market kind of shifted, I saw a major difference in non-remodeled versus remodeled.
Yeah. Are there any properties that you like stay away from, like when you're out wholesaling, like condos, or do you just you go after everything?
I avoid like larger luxury for the most part.
Luxury
on
SFR.
Fix and flip or wholesale. Depending on the pocket though. What I really avoid honestly is overbuilt properties. So like I see this in some areas, like where every house is a 2,200, but ours is 2,900. Freaking, it's scary. An appraiser will probably tell you that too, where diligence on a reno, good question. We'll send you. So I fix and flip so many dang houses that I'm really good at dialing a renovation. But every deal that we look at, we get pictures of, we run a construction, we walk, and we get construction estimates on most of them. The cosmetic reader front. My typical square footage is $55 a square foot, just desktop. And then we'll go look at it. If it needs a roof, if it needs plumbing, any plumbing issues, any kind of mechanical stuff, electrical stuff, we will factor in that pricing. And then so it ranges. I mean, I go from $55 a square foot. We just got a property up in Palo Alto. I'm going to run it at $150 a square foot because we're using higher end finishes. So the square footage isn't the problem, but the area is the difference. So depending if it's cosmetic or not, what kind of paint's being used. So the analysis is pretty detailed, I'd say. I'm directionally accurate, I'd say within 95% of the reno. I've certainly been too heavy on reno, times, and other times a little bit too light. But anyone in San Diego, we have our contractors walk to.
Gotcha. And then,
Most of the time.
can borrowers walk these properties? Like,
Yeah, they
is,
gotta go.
is there a time frame, or is it kind of hard to?
Yeah, for any of our deals,
Get your-
borrowers certainly go walk them. Like
Yeah. Okay.
they,
I know
yeah,
some wholesalers, like, you get like one chance to walk the property, and like,
yeah, it depends
supposed to
on the
base your
situation with the seller or the
budget off of that.
tenant. Yeah, like I have a deal right now. It's in San Bernardino County. Tenant's lived there 30 years. He is not very excited to be moving. And he's like, I was like, when can we bring our investors into the property? Or, he's like, one day. He's like,
Yeah,
"Okay."
it can be kind of tricky sometimes.
So we got video and pictures, we run our estimates. I mean, most of the time dealing with like in my experience dealing with more experienced investors is they make just a lot of times they're like, I don't need to see it, I'm good, because they've seen enough deals. But newer people, you gotta go see them and bring a contractor there, bring it to a walkthrough. Other times it's on a lockbox and you can go as many times as you want.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
No big deal, it's already vacant.
Yeah, there will be, just to answer Alicia's question real quick. Yeah, there'll be a recorded version once we're done. All right, so we got the rules of evaluation down. So yeah, good.
Yeah,
Good.
and bed bath stuff, that's also factored in for you guys to understand. So run from 2-2s right now. I wouldn't play with 2-2s. Make sure you can add a third. 2-1s, if there's data, do a 2-1, but like be cautious.
Yeah.
You want to be in a 3-2 space. So I comp any 2-2 against a 3-2. If I can, if once I walk it, I get inside, I see you could turn into a third.
Yeah, we actually come across LA is kind of known. Well, a couple parts in LA. We did a couple 2-1,
deals
and then
over
they're adding another bedroom. So
I mean,
up
most
there.
stuff I look at, if you're gonna look at a 2-2, think about, and the smallest deal I've ever done, I converted to a 3-2 was 796 square feet. It was a 2-2 or 2-1, we made into a 3-2. Now, if layout's there, it's possible.
Yeah, exactly.
But typically you need like 1,000 square feet, somewhere in there.
All right. So real quick, how to get started. This is actually, I mean, it's going to be a lot easier than you think. First step is start going to local real estate meetups. A real good one that, I got started at was SDCAA, San Diego Creative Investors Association. Daniel's a sponsor. We're actually a sponsor, but before I was with TaliMar, I was working for another kind of smaller hard money company. And then that's where I actually met Brock. So it all kind of stemmed from there. And then there's, of course, free YouTube videos and podcasts. I mean, Daniel, I don't think you have a podcast yet, but I'm sure it's in the work. Everybody has a podcast these days. I think Brock's making a podcast here pretty soon, but I'm gonna stay out of the podcast game for a little bit.
My YouTube channel is I'm starting to put more content on there for sure. I mean, podcast.
I started with Bigger Pockets, a free plug for them. If you're brand new, just jump on there, start listening to Bigger Pockets, and you'll be speaking the real estate lingo, and after 2-3 podcasts. Another good avenue to get started is to just reach out to local investors. If you want to do a deal, a lot of these guys will JV with you. So I don't know, Daniel, will you JV with people?
Yeah, for sure.
That your thing? Yeah.
Yeah. So I do deals a lot of different ways. If you guys get wind of a property and you want to wholesale, get some cash versus fix and flip it, I'll JV that way. I'll help you unload the property. We'll get it, or I will buy it with you. So let's say, for example, you're like, hey, I do different things. I will fund your EMDs. So let's say, for example, you need an EMD for a freaking deal. You're like, how do I don't have the 20 grand that they're asking. Call me up or reach out. I will give you the deposit. Another thing I'll do is that's in the capital space is I will give you the transactional funding. So if you need $1 million and we got to close on this thing in a week, I'll get you $1 million if we're trading it same day to another buyer. So if on the wholesale side, I can back you as a wholesale to get you some deal flow and get some cash. Other thing I can do is come in and do what's called gap financing. Brandon can explain what gap is.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
gap financing is, so if you need a 20% down payment, Daniel will come in as probably a junior lien holder, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm in second position.
Yeah, he'll record a second position. But if you have somebody that will do a silent second, I mean, that can be allowed too, but majority of cases are gonna record a junior lien. And that'll get you your 20% down. So that's a real connect with, people like Daniel.
Yeah.
You're not gonna make a killing on your first deal, but you're gonna get the knowledge and you're definitely gonna make some money. So I mean, it's kind
Yeah,
of
the
like,
biggest thing is the money's made, everyone's said this 1,000 times, money's made on purchase. You got to buy it right. So, and Brandon can tell you that. So like any of the deals that we have going, we'll run by the same process, run it by, Brandon, these guys, see where pricing can be, where we need it, and figure out the math from there.
and then a quick question from Corey. Do you stay away from anything that needs a permit?
No.
No, yeah. We don't either. It's just for us. Like if you want to make like build an ADU or convert the garage to an ADU, the permit has to be in place before we can issue those construction funds. So this depends on how long the permit takes. Sometimes
Yeah,
it can,
on the investing side, welcome to distressed houses. Most of this shit is just it's patched together in a way that you're like, I don't even know. We covered patios and in a permit, like, oh, that's just the world we're in. An appraiser, like Corey's going to come in, he's going to factor in the square footage. Obviously, if it's done in workmanship quality, they're going to grant their appraisers still going to appraise that property. Correct me if I'm wrong, Corey. And some of these I've come across, I had a deal I just did 3 weeks ago where they had it was tax rolled as a 2-1, but it was actually a 3-2. But the work was done like 40 years ago. It wasn't even like it was new. They just never recorded the extra bedroom and baths. So they were selling it as a 2-1 because they were worried about appraisal. So we got a really good deal on it, for example. So like knowledge is power, right? It definitely helps to know.
yeah, definitely. Property report is, if you have access to property report, I mean, that's the first step.
Yeah.
Which we can help you out with that. It's the first thing I do when we analyze the deals, pull the property report, make sure your bed bath count and square footage lines up. I mean, 100%, because I've seen ones where it's 300-400 square foot less, and the guy you're buying it from says it's like 2,000 square feet, and it's really 1,500. So,
yeah,
there's somebody in the chat. What's the average price rehab cost of your deals? That's hard to say. I mean, that just depends on how run down the house is. I mean, it could be a hoarder house. It could be anywhere from, it just really depends. The average price that we're seeing lately come across our desk, it's usually 80 to like 120,000 in renovation. So hopefully that answers your question. Part 2 of that question, are buyers typically borrowing money, or are a lot of these cash deals? In my experience, they've all been cash deals, but also in rural areas. Yeah, they borrow the money. So we'll move on to the next slide, because that's kind of tells you what financing looks like. But yeah, we'll fund up 80% of the purchase price and the renovation. But your loan amount is going to be capped at 70% of the after repair value. And we're lending on single family, multifamily, mixed use properties. And then that's the fix and flip loan.
Do you guys know what that means, by the way?
Which
So
one?
just so you know, because I'm not very smart, it probably took me 2 years to understand a fix and flip loan. And I was doing them at the time. I was like, I still don't really understand what they're saying. I just know what my profit is. And I think it's helpful. So what Brandon's saying is this. So,
We're underwriting the future value.
and you'll hear loan to cost, or you'll hear loan to value, and they're different. Loan to cost. He's saying if you bought the house for 100,000, we're going to give you 80.
80. Yeah, exactly.
But you're capped at 70%
Of the after
ARV.
repair. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're
Basically saying you can't
$100,000
go to-
house.
You can explain that. Yeah.
Your $100,000 house, or let's say million, because we're in San Diego.
Yeah.
So your $1 million after repair value, your max loan amount is going to be 700,000. So it's going to be, kind of to back up a little bit, the loan amount's going to be the lesser of the two. So it's going to be 80% of the purchase price plus the renovation budget, or 70% of the ARV. That's going to be your max loan amount, whichever is the lesser of those two. So if you have a huge rehab budget, you know, you might have to come in with slightly more down payment to get that 70% ARV back in line. Doesn't mean we can't fund the loan, just means you have to, it's no longer 80% funding of the purchase price. So you have to come in with like a little bit more than 20. But most cases, like I say, like 90% of the cases that come across my desk, it's 80, we can fund 80% of the purchase price. And then the rehab amount, and a lot of people have a question about like, how do I get those funds? Are they dispersed to me like when we close? Unfortunately, they're not going to be given to you right when you close. They're going to be held in what's called a fund control. And before we close, we're going to work up what's called a draw schedule based on your scope of work and your budget. So good rule of thumb, every 100,000, you're going to have like 8 draws. So we'll break those down into different phases. Phase 1 is usually demolition. Phase 2, you know, framing. Phase 3 will be like new flooring, windows, etc. Once you close on the house, you get in there, you start your renovation. Now you're going to do your demo. Once your demo's done, it's super simple. You just log into our website, request a draw, and take a video of a quick walkthrough of the property, and then we wire the money to your account 24 hours. So it's super simple. It's a lot easier than people think. People think sometimes you can't get your different lenders will have like a 5-week turnaround time for draws, or 5-day, but we can do it in 24 hours. So there's other types of loans out there, bridge loans. So if you wanted to fund the renovation yourself, it just means a little bit more down payment. We can fund up to 75% of the current value. For this loan, we're going to be solely based on what the property is worth at the time of purchase. And most cases, no appraisal and 5 to 7 day close. So as long as you get your diligence items in, we'll close you in 5 to 7. You see those listings that say cash or hard money, we're the guys you want to call. 100%.
Can you give me a quick example just for the math? Does anyone have a calculator? This is how I need to, because I'm not very, like I said, I'm not very smart. Like I need, let's say, for example, I have $1 million ARV.
Yeah.
And a place needs 150,000.
Okay.
And I have the contract at 725.
So 725, you take 725 and subtract 20%.
So, but I want to fund the reno. So I have 150K reno.
Yeah. So your initial loan amount, if you're under the contract for 725, and what'd you say? So with 20% down. So for 20% down, you're going to be at 580 is going to be your initial loan amount. Then you're going to add your reno. What's your reno?
150.
So that's your loan amount, 730, right? And then what was the ARV of the house?
$1 million.
So right there, you're over. So your max loan amount of $1 million would be 700,000, because that's the lesser of the two.
So how much am I putting down to buy the house?
You're going to be putting down, I don't have the exact number, but you'll be putting down probably like 25%.
It's like 100, sounds like, so I'm going through this slow for a reason, because this is where I got confused. I initially started getting hard money loans. Just so you guys know, like TaliMar in general, I'm not saying this because I like Brandon and Brock, because I really do like them as people. Like we can hang out and all that. They're legitimate and they're not going to mess with you. They're going to tell you exactly what you need to do. and they're gonna execute. So like when you do go get a loan, like there's a lot of lenders out there. It's very crowded space. There are few that are as good as them. I will tell you that right now. Because they're gonna be
Thanks
in
for the
quick.
comments.
Yeah.
Have you been around since 2008? I'm sure a lot of people have heard of, our president, Brock Vandenberg, but he's fund manager, and this guy's been just out there, closing
So,
loans since
so
2008.
so I'm gonna be out of pocket, and if there's points, whatever, it's just points, right? You're gonna pay fees on that because you got your cost to borrow money. So 580,000 is gonna be my loan amount plus 150.
Yep. So your total loan amount, well, your total loan amount is gonna, if your ARV is $1 million, your total loan amount is gonna be 700.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to pay an additional, let's call it 40 grand.
Yeah.
So this is why negotiation matters, getting the price down matters when you're buying property. Because a lot of times what I will use in negotiation with the seller is, dude, the loan doesn't make sense for me. I actually can't get, like, I know you think your property is worth 800. I actually need this at 675. Because what ends up happening is, a new investor says, I'm going to get it 70% of ARV or 72% of ARV, but they're not really doing the math. This is why, so when you work with Brandon, like, you guys get pre-qualified, get in the system
Yeah.
once you have a deal, and get underwritten on multiple deals so you understand where the pricing is going to be.
Yeah. So we have like a preferred borrower account program. You log in, we get you underwritten. So all we have to do is underwrite the property, which can lead to, faster closing times. But yeah, we'll analyze the deal like right off the bat. So I mean, if you give me those numbers, and you're capped at 70 ARV, we won't go into the loan saying like, oh, we're at 8,100. We'll let you know up front that this, we can still do the loan, but the numbers work at, say, 25% down, whatever the case may be, if that makes sense. Quick question from Corey. So if you're dealing with properties that have a H&BU, I'm not sure. Do you know what that is? H&BU of adding an ADU.
I see ADU. You're talking about ADU?
Yeah.
Accessory dwelling unit?
Or adding units to SFR because the zoning allows this. How are you handling these deals if you are not getting a permit? Do you wholesale this to an investor and let them take that on? Jesus Christ.
Adding an ADU. You're asking me, is that a question for me, Corey? I don't play it all. I don't like all the new SP9, SP10 stuff. I typically don't play a lot of because they're overpriced. A lot of investors, they like those.
They take forever to get entitlements, by the way, just so you know.
6 months,
I guess it depends on how many ADUs you're building.
Yeah.
I got a buddy that's
I'm thinking
14, and it's going on like 9 months.
So I'll say this is I don't play a lot. The ADU space I think is I think it's great, but it's overstated as far as profit for a flipper. Like, because the cost to build is just so high. So I don't play a lot in that space, to be very clear. But you're gonna require a permit 100% if you're gonna build an ADU. I mean, you don't play with those. Is that? So they're a must for a permit. I've never seen one, at least if I come across people converting their garage and calling an ADU all the damn time. We just rip them out and convert it back to a single family, now that happens.
Yeah, we've funded loans like that before where there's an unpermitted garage conversion, but the borrower just has to plan on getting permit. We wouldn't be able to count that square footage at closing. We would have to know that your plan is to get that permitted, and then we're okay with it. I guess hopefully that answers your question. And
Corey, so you're talking about 90% of appraised value. You're not wrong, except for the fact that the properties tend to be completely drastically over appraised because the appraisers don't know how much the work it actually needs. And it's not priced well. And I've gotten properties that were approved via probate and they've just sat. And then end up taking a cash offer because it needed so much work. So they overstated the value Because they just,
Mhm.
and this isn't a knock on appraisers, this is just overall what I tend to see in the fixture space. It's just overpriced when they sit. So 90% of appraisal could be great. They have to go get a court order and change some pricing, which is always fun. So I've dealt with those. I buy about 2 appraisers a month. Excuse me, probates a month.
Yeah.
So it's a fairly decent amount of deals I do there. Some of them, depending on the attorney, they just want to sell it. They in the situation being court, whatever, probate law, I'm buying them off market. I bought some off market. Most of the time they are listed and they're listed for too long. And then that's what ends up happening. Like, oh, we got to sell this damn thing. And they just kind of get walked back with pain after too much time. But it happens.
Yeah, okay. Real quick, Alicia, require a licensed contractor for the work. Doesn't have to be licensed, but I mean, we prefer, but no, it doesn't have to be licensed. And then we have Adela. Sorry, I missed your question earlier, but can you share a real life success story where a unique strategy was used to uncover a hidden gem for a fix and flip project? I guess the one that comes to mind is a good borrower of ours. So this is actually a good example. It's a 7, it's going to be a 7 unit, but 2 units are unpermitted. So his plan is to rehab the 5 units and get the other 2 units permitted. So that's going to go from, like, I don't have the exact numbers for me on me for the after repair value, but current value, I think he picked it up for like 1.2. I remember that. And it was going to be worth, I believe, around 1.7 once it's all done. So I think that's pretty good profit margin right there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
then, yeah.
there's so many. I have a pretty, I mean,
Do you have one?
yeah, I mean, I once connected with it's the craziest story. I once, like, we call it secondary consequences, where you do something and you get benefit elsewhere, but you really weren't looking for it, and I'm sure we've all had that in our lives. Like, I was once dealing with this seller who I did not buy the property from. So I go to this guy's house and he is like completely distressed. I mean, he's not behind or anything, but it's clearly like a major fixer. He wanted to do the work himself. We were pretty far apart on pricing. He wanted that, and look, it needed everything, but he wanted to do some of the work. And so he ends up having come over a friend of his when I was there who is a junk hauler. And the junk hauler kind of I became friends with the junk hauler, just kind of shooting it, hanging out. And cool, we ended up kind of parting ways. I ended up helping the guy, just making sure when he did sell his house, hooking him up with a good agent, and he escrow title stuff, just teaching him like all the nuances of selling a property and how important it is to make sure you're selling with the right people. Now, I'm not licensed, but I deal with a lot of licensed agents and just referring them. Probably spent like an hour and a half together, just chit chatting. And then, I don't know, maybe a year or so later, I get a call from the junk hauler who happened to be removing junk from a current property. That was like, hey, do you remember me? I'm like, I mean, I didn't realize we exchanged numbers, but couldn't recognize the name. And then she ended up being junk. I have this property. This family is like looking to sell it, and I'm there hunking all this junk. Like, do you want to come talk to them? So I bought the deal. It was right over on University.
Nice.
City Heights. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
There's a good, good example.
There you go. Nice. All right. So I think we're getting close to our time. Want to thank Dan for being my very first guest. I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. So hopefully it was as good for you as it was for me.
Yeah.
Oh, even Siri said my pleasure. So if you want to connect with Dan, you want to tell us a little about, I know you said you got some training programs.
Yeah, no, look,
Via email or?
Yeah, so this is my personal email, guys, my personal
get hold of you.
phone. I have a new branding company that's coming out here in the next couple of weeks, couple months, but
You have the name yet or still waiting?
I do. It's pretty badass. I
Are
will.
you gonna share with us or not?
Not right now. I will
All
share.
right. All right, stay tuned. Stay tuned.
There you go. But I previously founded a company called Homely Acceleration Capital. You guys probably heard of that or have seen it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the new one coming in for sure was pretty cool. And yeah, so you guys can find me on, if you have any questions, you guys reach out via email, usually kind of my personal email for now. But I'll be doing, I do webinars a fair amount. I'll do seminars around San Diego and just, but you can find me on Instagram at Daniel Tremelo.
Type it in the chat if you have time.
Yeah. And you can find, obviously, Brandon's on there.
Oh. Mine's a wild one. It's at Brandon from TaliMar. And you can
That's
always reach
real
out
wild.
to me. You can always reach out to me, the contact info and my email, of course, bwarnke at TaliMar Financial. It's right here on my wrist, so make sure I never miss one. Electronic leash. But
So yes, I mean, they're in like, be communicative, be open. Brennan and I like to think that we're approachable. We're at events. Like if you
yeah,
have
100%.
questions or anything, like please come up and say and say hi. That's
Yeah.
why we're there. You know,
Yeah,
we want to do business with you. We want to collaborate for sure.
yeah. And cruise out to the local meetups. A really good one. I know I keep saying it because we're both been members for a little bit, is SDCIA, San Diego Creative Investors Association. And then another one is Brew RE. That's a fun one. There's not a lot of speaking going around. There is a lot of beer drinking and just networking with like-minded professionals that are all in real estate. So I appreciate everybody for attending. Dan, do you have any last words?
No, I do not.
All right.
No, I'm good. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Well, I appreciate it. And to the people that stuck around to the end, hey, I appreciate you. And if you see me at Brewery, please hit me up. I'll if you mention this webinar, I will buy you a beer. So all right.
There you go.
All right, signing off.
Love it.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Talk to you guys later.